Hey, this is Coach Shay with Alpha Girl Soccer Academy, and welcome to the Alpha Girl Soccer podcast show, where we aim to inspire, empower, and positively impact female athletes. On today's episode of the Alpha Girl Soccer podcast, I talked to Derek Lipton, who is the founder of Full Circle Nutrition. Derek is a registered dietitian, certified personal trainer, and a board-certified specialist in sports dietetics. Derek specializes in working with soccer players and is open to working with players both in person and online. I've included a link in the show notes below for you to connect with Derek at the end of the episode. In this episode, Derek provides very specific action steps for players to take in order to improve performance and overall health. So whether you're a parent or a player listening to this episode, be ready to take notes. All right, let's get into it. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Derek. Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Alpha Girl Soccer podcast. Today, we are going to interview Derek Lipton, the founder of Full Circle Nutrition. Derek, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, doing well. So I've been really excited to interview you. I know we just talked about you're my first guest on the show, so I'm excited to continue to do these kinds of interviews. But I'm excited to talk to you in particular because, I'm super passionate about helping kids, with their performance, and I know nutrition is a huge part of it. So give us a little backstory, a little background of you and why you are so passionate about helping athletes with their nutrition.
All right. Yeah. So, I grew up playing sports. My main sports were soccer and baseball. And, just growing up, I always, wanted to play in college. Got a couple small college offers for soccer, but decided just to go to a bigger school. And then later in my high school career, I started to realize, the impact that fitness can have on you. I was always one of the smaller players. And then after my junior year, I started really working out and taking care of my nutrition a little bit better. And, I got a lot stronger, and I noticed that during my senior year. So that really, sparked my interest in nutrition and wanting to work with athletes. And then another thing was also, back my sophomore year of high school, I had a stress fracture, and, I played through it because I didn't really understand it. But then that kind of limited me afterward, and I kind of never fully recovered from that. And basically stress fractures happen from, overtraining and undernutrition. And I realized now that, I really wasn't eating enough or eating the right foods. And that probably played a critical role in that injury. And, you just never know what might happen with my career if that never happened. So it's, if I can help athletes now, not only feel better for performance, but prevent those injuries, that's a big thing. So that's what really got me into nutrition. So I studied it in college, did the internship, grad school, and then other advanced certifications. And then I got some practice and experience working at the college level. I worked at University of Georgia for a year, and then I worked with the men's soccer team at Duke last fall, doing all their hydration, nutrition needs, meal planning. It was a really great experience. They learned a lot from me. I learned a lot from them. And then that's when I decided to, open up my practice and help high school athletes trying to play at that level, and as college athletes too, trying to, perform better in college and then play pro as well.
Awesome. So that's awesome. You worked with Duke soccer team. That's huge. What was, you would say, the number one, what was your favorite part of working with them, and what was your biggest challenge, or the challenge that you think that the college athletes struggled with the most?
My favorite part was just being part of the team. They really took me in. I was at all the practices, all the home games, got to go on a couple away games too, and they just really embraced me as part of the team. A lot of times the sports dietitian is kind of just, they're there, they work with multiple teams, and they kind of just show up, but they really let me be part of the team and took me in. So that was great, just being part of that camaraderie, because all the coaches, all the players, they were super nice. And one of the biggest challenges with college athletes is their schedules. They don't have time.
Yeah.
It's crazy. You wake up at 6 a.m. for a workout, then you go to class, and then you have 20 minutes for lunch, then you go to practice, then you study, then dinner, then study, and you got to get to sleep early because you wake up early again.
Yes.
So it's a matter of, them, trying to work with them to fit in meals and snacks within their schedule. And also if they need to meet with you one-on-one, it's really hectic because, all right, you have 20 minutes right now. Okay, let's meet. So it gets kind of crazy there, but yeah, I would just say the challenges of balancing, being a student, having a social life, and then being a full-time athlete, and working around that is really challenging.
So did you work mainly like with the team as a whole, or did you kind of meet with them on a one-on-one basis as well?
So I met with the team as a whole. So, I'd be at practices and then, help with hydration. And then I would do like quick, we call them team talks. So it's like a 2-minute presentation at the end of practice just to talk about stuff. And then, put handouts around the locker room. Then there were certain players that I worked with one-on-one. Some players needed to gain weight, or their energy was lacking, or they're, certain players, if they're juniors or seniors and they're really trying to get ready to go pro, really helping them boost their nutrition to get through the rest of the season and then get ready for the MLS Combine coming up.
Right.
So it's a lot of that, but yeah, there's not really a whole lot of one-on-ones in the college setting just because they don't have time.
Right.
And that's where those education pieces come in.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of kids to manage too. If it was, one-on-one, like 30 kids are on a roster about. So.
Yeah, I mean, I had time for it. They didn't have time really.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know as a college athlete, it's like
it's crazy.
One thing after another. All right, cool. So let's get into a little bit about tournament nutrition and fueling. So I know I talked about this on my podcast weeks ago, but and in no means am I an expert on this. And I know, so when we put out this episode, it'll be like the end of July. So I know there's still going to be some tournaments going on. And then, of course, there's going to be tournaments going on all year over the fall. So talk to us a little bit about, the timing of meals. What should athletes focus on eating? What should they focus on avoiding and stuff like that?
Yeah. So I actually listened to your podcast about the tournament fueling, and it was really good. You touched on a lot of great points, what they need to, focus on, the hydration, the eating between meals. Just a couple things I would add to that too is, one, you mentioned something about diluting Gatorade, because all the sugar, but Gatorade and Powerade actually formulated perfectly for athletes. There's less sugar in them than juice. Yeah. So there's actually no need to dilute it because it's not going to, give you a sugar rush or dehydrate you or anything like that. So, the only reason to dilute it is if you have trouble tolerating it.
Right.
So like sometimes large quantities can be tolerating. So that's where diluting it helps. And then the other thing was, the balance of meals between games. You definitely want to get a little bit of protein in there, but the emphasis really is on carbs because carbs are what fuel you during the game. And if you have, if you eat too much protein too close to a game or just in general, what happens is it breaks down and can kind of make you feel a little bit more fatigued actually when it breaks down into your blood. But that's not to say have no protein. It's just, carbs are your emphasis. And the main thing with tournaments is, basically between games, eat every hour. That's the simplest way to put it. So if, and it varies a little bit based on size, but you're going to want to aim for about like a gram per kilogram, right? So for the average, youth soccer player, that's probably anywhere from 50 to 60 grams of carbs every hour. So that's, like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. That's, a banana and a granola bar. And these are good because you also get the nutrients from them. But the biggest thing with tournaments, again, is they're not normal, basically. And you're going to miss out on calories because if you have 2 or 3 games in a day, you usually miss lunch. And breakfast is probably small as well because you're starting early. So the biggest thing you got to do is the rest of the week has to be taken care of. So you can't skip out on snacks and meals, on Monday through Friday, because if you fall behind during the week, you're never going to catch up on the weekend. And with that said, starting around, Friday lunch or Friday dinner, you want to eat a little bit more. So have a little bit bigger dinner, a little bit bigger night snack. And what that does is it kind of gives you a head start on those nutrients. So as you burn through them on Saturday and Sunday, you have that in store, so you're not getting fatigued. And then at night for dinner on the weekends, that's where you can really make up for the calories that you didn't get during the day. So have a big dinner at night. What I usually tell my athletes is, so if it's a Saturday, Sunday tournament, Saturday night dinner, make it big, but make it healthy. So, try to stay away from like the burgers and fries and things like that, but, maybe like chicken sandwich and, some vegetables or pasta and rice. Because you don't want all those bad fats creating inflammation, which is going to slow you down on Sunday. Right. So you want the calories and you want to be healthy and you want to get some more snacks after that. Then Sunday night, do what you want for dinner. Have fun with it. Have that bacon cheeseburger with fries, because at that point you need the calories. You need to replace the calories you burn during the day. You don't have a game the next day, so a little acute inflammation is not going to hurt you. And the biggest thing is they're kids, right? Everyone, you don't have to eat perfectly healthy all 21 meals every week. So enjoy the food. You can afford it at that point, absolutely. So Saturday night dinner healthy, Sunday night do what you want.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. So what would you say? All right, so let's give our listener a scenario. So let's say it's Saturday morning. They have a game at 9 a.m. and then we'll say they have another game at 2 p.m. So that's 3 hours about in between games. So take us through, just give us a few sample meals. So starting from breakfast before the first game. So starting from that, going into between the two games and going into Saturday night dinner. Give us kind of our listener some concrete meals that they could have that would fuel them, for the whole day.
Okay, yeah. So 9 a.m. game, you're there at, let's say 8:15 to warm up. So you're not going to have a big breakfast because unless you're waking up at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m., you really can't have that massive breakfast. So let's say you wake up at 7. That's 2 hours before the game. That's good time to digest. So it's going to be something light. So let's go with, a bagel, like a white bagel and a couple egg whites. Or even if you find the eggs a little bit too hard to tolerate, even just a bagel and cream cheese or, a little bit of Greek yogurt. And if you need that smaller breakfast, that's where the Friday night dinner needs to be a little bit bigger. But yeah, something light there to get in your stomach, give you some energy, but doesn't weigh you down. Yeah. And then maybe shortly before the game, like right after warm-ups, get a little bit more quick carbs. So you could do gels and chews or banana or pretzels, something like that, just to kind of top off your stores.
Cool.
And then right after the game, so 9 o'clock game, it ends at 10:15, 10:30 because tournament games are a little bit shorter.
Right.
And so right away you want to get something. So let's start with the protein shake. So the Gatorade nutrition shakes, Core Powers, even Nesquik, something that's carbs and protein in it.
Gotcha.
Get that in you right away. And then, so let's say that's at 10:30. Then 11:30 or 12, you're going to have lunch. And so let's say something simple, right? Like a turkey sandwich. Throw a little veggies on there. And then let's, have a piece of fruit with that, like an apple or an orange. Try to stay away from the fried chips. And then, so that's 11:30 or 12. And then, you're going to warm up at 1. So shortly before warm-ups, let's go with, a protein bar, granola bar, like a Cliff Bar. Those are pretty good. So that's at, let's say that's 12:45. And then you go to warm-ups and the game's at 2. So around 1:45, 1:50, that quick carb snack again. So pretzels, bananas, something like that. And that's a pretty easy scenario because there actually is a lot of time between games there.
Right.
Some tournaments, they got, 2 hours between games, and that's where it's just, a sandwich definitely isn't going to fit in. That varies. But yeah, that's a pretty good scenario there. Then again, after that second game, let's get another one of those little protein drinks. And then another snack, maybe you get back to the hotel or you get home, have another snack, and then you go to dinner later.
Cool. So you said, if you did have 2 hours, you said a sandwich would probably be too much. So is that just because, they're not going to have time to digest that big of a meal? Give us some ideas for some smaller snacks. That could be protein shake and some carbs or what?
Yeah. And everyone's a little bit different because you can some people tolerate it a little bit better, but then there's also the fact that you might tolerate it, but it's still slowing down nutrient absorption. And then you're not getting that energy. But if you have exactly 2 hours and you're able to eat a turkey sandwich right after that first game, then you'll digest it in time and that's fine. But if you're playing, a 90-minute game in the 90-degree heat, chances are you don't have the appetite to eat a sandwich right after it.
Yeah.
It's going to take an hour or so to get your appetite back. So that's why the liquids are good. So that's where, one of those protein drinks again right after, and then an hour later, something carb-based. So again, Cliff Bar, fruit, something like that. But yeah, you want to stay away from heavy protein, too much protein, about 60 to 90 minutes before a game.
Okay. So here's a question so I was just at a tournament a few weekends ago and they have kind of some food trucks and smoothie trucks and whatever it is. So I saw so many kids walking around with these big giant smoothies. And I know that those smoothies are not going to be like 100% real fruit smoothies. Like I know they're probably packed with sugar. Is that something that players should really try to avoid, or maybe just in very small amounts? What do you think?
Honestly, it's not too bad. It really depends. If it's very high in sugar, then it might give them like that big spike and crash.
Okay.
If it's all natural fruit sugar and maybe a little bit of added sugar in there, really not too bad because it plays a big role in that immediate recovery. Actually,
Okay.
The sugar it doesn't really need to break down, so it's immediately absorbed into the bloodstream, restores those muscles and all that. But so it really depends on how much sugar is really in them.
Okay, so what I'm getting from this is when you're in a tournament, when you're playing, it's not really like there's no such thing as too much sugar necessarily. Like they need that sugar to replace those stores. Is that correct?
Well, there's such thing as too much, yeah. Because if they drink more than they need to replace their stores, then it sits in the bloodstream and you get that spike in blood sugar and then the rapid drop. So,
but they can't have more than just a normal day, saying just
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they burn through so much during that game.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. Anything on tournaments you think that the players should know?
What do you like? Anything else
that we haven't talked about?
Oh yeah. I think no, that's pretty much it. Yeah, the overall nutrition and hydration during the week, and then some. That big dinner at night, and then eating between games. Okay. And then there's hydration strategies, but I think we're going to talk about that a little bit later. Anyway,
yeah, so we'll hit that later. Cool. So let's get into a little bit more of the, I don't know if saying sciencey is the right word, but more of the nutrients. So macros, so carbs, protein, fat, stuff like that. Let's get into a little bit more of why carbs and protein specifically are so important to fuel performance. So just get into a little bit of that and why, those two macronutrients. And also, if you want to talk about fat too, and talk about when is fat good, when is fat not so good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So all three macronutrients are great. Fats, you got your unsaturated and your saturated. So like your unsaturated, the good fats. So like in nuts and seeds, olive oil, avocado, those are healthy fats. But then like, greasy burgers and fried foods, you get the unhealthy fats. But the good fats, they play a role in reducing inflammation, and then, protecting your cells, and then vitamin absorption. And then stored fat in your body is used for energy at low intensities. So during a soccer game, actually, over 70% of the game is spent at very, very low intensities, like walking, jogging, standing. Right. And then the other 30% is, very fast. So it's, for a lot of the game, you're burning through some of those fat stores, but you're not doing much. So during that other 30%, it's quick bursts where you need carbs. So if you don't eat enough carbs, then you're relying on fat for energy, and it's hard to get through those quick bursts during the rest of the game. So that's where that balance comes in. So carbs are great. They, you want some right before you play, so they're kind of in your bloodstream, ready to go. But then you also pull from your liver and your muscles. They store carbs in the form of glycogen, but now it's getting a little sciencey now, right?
Yeah.
So let's just say your muscles and your liver store the carbs, and they pull from there to give you energy during those high intensities. And that's the basis of that, and that's why you want a good amount of those as an athlete. Protein is, it's not an energy source. It can be used as one, but we don't want it to be used as one. Protein is for muscle building, for strength development, and then some other functions as well. What I see with a lot of young female athletes is almost a fear of carbs and actually a fear of protein. So the fear of carbs is, carbs are going to make me fat.
Yeah.
So I'll put this out there right there. If you're eating carbs to fuel your performance, and as long as you're not eating more calories than you burn, then they're not going to make you fat. And as a soccer player, you're so active, it's very unlikely that it's going to happen unless you're like downing, sugary sodas all day.
Yeah.
And then the protein, I saw this with a lot of my college athletes, the female athletes I worked with in college, is they were afraid to drink a protein shake after a workout because they didn't want to bulk up. And they used those exact words. And protein, like I said, it plays a huge role in muscle growth and development, recovery, strength, and all that. But if you drink a protein shake right after a workout, but the rest of your calories for the day are at a maintenance level, meaning you take in roughly as much as you burn, you're not going to put on a big amount of muscle, so you won't bulk up.
Okay.
So it's a very big myth. It's very common with with the female athlete population. So I just want to put that out there because actually I know you work predominantly with girl soccer players. So don't shy away from that protein shake. It's not going to bulk you up. What it's going to do is help you recover from those workouts, get physically stronger, so you perform better at each game.
Like, let's get into bulking a little bit. So yeah, because I know that's a huge myth, whether it's with athletes or just with, people in general are worried about, well, like we'll say women in general are worried about bulking up. But what does it really, really take for someone to get like jacked, like super bulked up? Like it takes a lot of work, right?
It takes a lot of work. It takes good genetics as well. A lot of body composition is genetics. And then you'll hear some people complain about that because they'll feel like people are using it as an excuse. But, genetics play a large role in body composition. It plays a role in how much muscle you can put on, how easily you put fat on and where you put that fat. But yeah, in terms of bulking up, what you need to do is you need to really be lifting hard to induce, muscle growth. You need to get adequate carbs, adequate protein to facilitate the muscle synthesis and growth. And you also need what's called a caloric surplus. So if you're, through all your activities, if you're burning 2,500 calories a day and you eat 3,000 calories a day, that's about a pound a week that you would put on. And and also think of how muscle isn't that much. So to really bulk up over time, that would take a lot. So one protein shake after each workout's not going to, make you bulk up.
Right. Absolutely.
Or else you would see, a lot of guys being very big, right?
Yeah. I mean, you see it with like women CrossFitters, like they're big, but they work their butt off to get there. Like they're eating a ton, they're lifting probably 2 hard sessions a day.
Yeah.
So it's just like people in general need to realize it takes a whole lot of work to bulk up. So speaking of other myths, what are some big other myths like nutrition wise? Because I feel like nutrition is such like a field where it's so the information is all over the place. Like it depends who you listen to, what you look up on the internet, like you can hear a million different things. It's like, what other big myths do you think there are? And, I guess myths that are hurting people's, mindset and performance.
Well, there's a lot.
Give me like top few that come to your mind first.
The biggest one that comes to my mind is, when someone says you need to eat 1 gram per pound a day of protein.
Okay.
And that's so generalized. First of all, protein recommendations are actually based by kilogram. That's just how we learn them.
Yes.
So 1 gram per pound would be 2.2 grams per kilogram, right? Mm-hmm. An athlete needs anywhere from 1.2 to 2.0 grams per kilogram. So it's under 1 gram per pound.
Okay.
And the only time you need a little bit more than that is if you're really trying to lose weight, while cutting calories. But in terms of youth athletes, we don't really work on that because we don't really want to promote weight loss when they're so young like that. And what happens is if an athlete follows that and if they try to hit that goal, what's going to happen is they're actually going to exceed it because we don't realize certain foods that have a lot of protein in them. Mm-hmm. And then what happens is you end up either just eating too many calories or you don't eat enough carbs. And then carbs are our fuel. So now you're lacking energy. And then you start to break down that protein for energy, which creates acidity in the blood, which makes your muscles feel fatigued more easily. So you eat this high protein diet and you're lacking energy during, practices and games. Okay. So that's probably one of the biggest myths that's out there. And then there's some of the other extreme ones that, no one should eat dairy, no one should eat gluten. And that's just, I don't know where people get these claims from, but yeah.
I feel like I said, I'm not an expert, but I feel like everybody's body is so different.
Right.
There's not one best diet for everybody. Like, I don't know what it depends on, but I feel like everybody's so different. So it just kind of is, do what works for you, what makes you feel the best, what makes you perform the best.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. That's the beauty of nutrition. It's so individualized. And, that's what I do when I work with athletes is I, personalize it to them. So I don't, just have some custom meal plan template. I don't have like a set of supplements that I recommend to everyone. Cause I always try to do a food first approach. So
Right.
only certain supplements may be needed. It's so individualized. And then, I even have people ask me like, what do you do when you meet one-on-one with an athlete? And it's always hard to give an answer to that because sometimes it's straightforward. We go through your food log and we say, all right, let's make some changes here, here, and here, try this out and all that. And other times it's, all right, we spend 20 minutes talking about, when to eat and how to do this. And maybe you need supplements and how does this fit into that routine, or, how do you prevent injuries? So it's always different, which is nice.
Yeah. So I know we talked a lot about, fueling for performance, but what about just during the week? So let's say it's the school year, they have school and then they have maybe an hour or two and then they have practice. So what can a player do if a player is really like motivated to dial in their nutrition and be healthier? Like what are some ways that they can achieve that in like a practical way? Like give them some advice, foods to stay away from, foods to eat. Should they track their food? Should they track their calories? What should they do to kind of just have more of a healthy lifestyle?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is something I work on with a lot because during the school year, it's really hard for high school, middle school athletes to keep track of their nutrition, mainly because they start so early. So, it's hard to get a good breakfast. And then sometimes lunch is super early, which is, makes it hard too. In terms of tracking calories, I don't really recommend that for a lot of young athletes. Maybe as they get older, like, by like 16, 17 years old. But at a younger age, what it does, it just kind of, it gets them too fixated on food. And when you get too fixated on everything you eat, it can start to have negative effects on it, leading to potentially, disordered eating patterns down the road. And that's really something we don't want to happen. So keeping track of your nutrition, paying attention to it is great. So there's no need to track like calories. Instead, what they should do is, keep a mental log of what they eat and how their energy is, how they feel during practices, and track of their weight. And then for female athletes, if they hit menarche already, they started menstruation and then that stops at some point, that's a sign of underfueling. And it's pretty common in female athletes, especially gymnastics, soccer, sports that a lot of times require some kind of leanness or a lot of intense activity. So that's, as a female athlete, that's the biggest sign that you're not eating enough. And then male athletes, it's just, obviously, again, you can pay attention to your energy. If you notice injuries, muscle tears, weakness, things like that, then there's things you need to change. And in terms of trying to prevent those things from happening, make sure you have a good breakfast, whether it's planning ahead. So if you're not a breakfast eater and you don't want to wake up early, but you need a lot of calories, the night before, make like a peanut butter and jelly on a bagel, and then you can eat that on your way to school. And that's a pretty decent breakfast, right? You can have some Greek yogurt with that. You don't have to wake up early and make eggs and make it an oatmeal, right? It's planning ahead and then bringing snacks with you to school. I know there's limitations. Some classes you can't eat in, you can't eat in the hallway. But if maybe some teachers will let you, and it could be simple, some fruit, protein bars, stuff that's non-perishable. So you can't really bring like yogurt, but nuts, peanut butter sandwiches, things like that. Have some good protein, healthy fats. They'll keep you full and give you that energy. Because if you're relying on just breakfast and early lunch and then maybe a small snack after school, which even a lot of athletes don't do, then you go into practice at 4 or 5 o'clock and you can't give it your all. You might feel like you can because it's just what you're used to. And that's the problem is, athletes don't realize that they're underfueled. And coaches can realize it sometimes. But
like for me, that's like one of my biggest frustrations. And I can always tell. So if a player comes to practice or comes to our training after school and they kind of walk up looking tired, the first thing I ask them is, did you eat? Like, did you have a good lunch? Did you have a snack after school? And most of the time it's like, I had lunch, at 11 or 12. they had a sandwich and some chips, but then they didn't eat anything after. And it drives me nuts because I like beat it into their head. Hey, you have to eat before practice. You have to prepare. You have to plan. So what are some do you have any advice basically for me to be able to get it into my players' head that they need to start, preparing and planning, because without it, they just don't have energy. So what strategies do you have? One, maybe for a coach, and two, for a player, just some easy strategies for them to follow so that they can, be prepared ahead of time.
All right. A lot of that, it depends on the specific player. If it's one that, is really motivated to play at that next level, just use pro examples say, do you think Alex Morgan goes into training session without eating, right?
Yeah.
What youth girl soccer player is going to be like, I don't want to be like Alex Morgan, right? So, just use that. And I don't know her exact nutrition plan, but I'm sure she doesn't go 5 hours without eating going into a training session. And it makes a big difference. And then other things are say, hey, try this, when you come to our next training session, have, try an apple with a little bit of peanut butter before, or try some cereal an hour before you come, and let's see how your energy is. Do you notice it? A lot of my athletes, when they don't eat much, and then I build them that plan to eat better, and I fall 2 weeks later, and they're like, yeah, my energy is so much better during my workouts now. I've had some athletes say added 15 or 20 pounds to my bench press, just because my energy was better and stuff like that. And it makes a huge difference. So that's one way, is if they need to visually see it, and you just gotta say, hey, try it.
Yeah.
And then just give them those little examples, or those little ideas. Say it doesn't have to be complex. Just, you got home from school, you're coming to training in about an hour and a half, have a bowl of cereal.
Okay.
See how that works. Yeah.
Yeah. Who doesn't love cereal, right?
Exactly. Right. The staple of a college athlete. So.
Yeah. Definitely was my staple.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's get into, as you're taking your drink, let's get into hydration. We kind of talked about it a little bit. We know how important it is. Let's talk about hydration in terms of performance, and then hydration just in terms of general life functions. How can players keep track of their hydration, and how much should water, or liquid, I guess we could say, how much water should they be consuming on a daily basis?
Yeah. So hydration is probably one of my favorite topics to talk about. I don't know if anyone looks at my Instagram and Twitter, you'll see it's just a lot of different posts about hydration. You'd be surprised how much there is to talk about it. But it's just so important, and it gets overlooked because unless you're drinking Gatorade and stuff, it's not direct energy. It's not calories. So we don't think about that in our daily lives, but it does give us energy, and it prevents injuries, prevents cramps, right? The general rule of thumb is, take your weight in pounds, divide it in half. And that's how many ounces of water you should drink throughout the day. So half an ounce per pound, right? And that's in addition to sweat loss. So if you're not training that day, then, half an ounce per pound. But if you're training outside in the heat, it's good to measure that. Now it's hard to measure how much you lose from sweat. So one good thing to do is, weigh yourself before and after a training session. Obviously drink throughout, try to, if you can, every 10, 20 minutes, take a few gulps. And then again, weigh yourself before and after. If you lost a pound during that training session, you didn't lose a pound of fat, you lost a pound of water. Yeah. So you want to replace that with about 24 ounces of fluid, because, 16 ounces is a pound. But then you count for urinary losses. So that's why you go to 24 ounces. Okay. And that helps keep you back on hydration. So that's one good way to do it. If you don't weigh yourself before and after, you can use averages. For a soccer player in the heat, it's anywhere from 1 to 2 liters per hour of sweat loss. So again, that's hard to track. And the important thing about hydration is it's not just water. One question I got a lot with my soccer players was, can you be overhydrated? And they kind of meant it as a joke, but the answer is yes. If you are a very heavy sweater and you lose a lot of electrolytes, so if you notice your uniform getting these white stains on it, that's salt. Okay. So if you lose that salt and then you just replace it with water, the salt concentration gets low. Yes. And that's what leads to, it's called hyponatremia. So the basic signs of it, you get cramps, tightness, potential injury risk. But and then in severe cases, you can, you start to feel dizzy, you can pass out. So it can get serious. Like if you're 2 or 3 hours outside in the 95-degree humidity, I know it doesn't get too humid in California, but even still, the heat, you're losing a lot of electrolytes. And if you only replace it with water, then you can get close to that, dangerous risk. So that's the important thing is, if you're outside if you're training for more than an hour, then that's when you want to drink Gatorade as well.
Okay.
And then, so that's just general recommendations for hydration throughout the week. And then specific game day recommendations are key as well. Because especially with soccer, since it's hard to, hydrate during the game because you don't get as many breaks, it's your hydration coming into it. So, every night, make sure you're going to bed well hydrated, you wake up and you drink. And then 4 hours before the game, you want to, like I said, everything's in kilograms. So, 5 to 7 milliliters per kilogram. And that's how much water you want to drink about 4 hours before the game.
Okay.
Then 2 hours later, if you're still dehydrated, which you could tell by either if you can't go to the bathroom or if your urine is very dark and you're dehydrated, you're going to want to drink about another 3 to 5 milliliters per kilogram.
Okay.
And then about 15 minutes before the game, so let's say, you just finished warm-ups or you're getting to the lighter portion of warm-ups, you want to drink, around 8 milliliters per kilogram. If that's a lot, you can go maybe 5 to 8 milliliters per kilogram of, Gatorade or Powerade.
Okay.
And it's important that it's, one of those sports drinks, not just water, because they found that doing that actually, significantly increases, passing accuracy, shooting power, shooting accuracy during the game, which as soccer players, obviously important. Yeah. And then cool. Continue hydrating throughout the game as best as you can. I know when I played, it was really hard to tolerate Gatorade while I played. So I understand, if you don't want to drink too much of it during the game, but during halftime, do your best to replace with that, not water. Because again, they also found that, rehydrating with a sports drink versus water late in the game actually led to better, accuracy, decision making, and overall energy. And you see a lot of games, a goal is scored in the last 10, 15 minutes.
Right.
And so you want your energy, if you're taking in those electrolytes and those carbs and your opponent isn't, you're going to score. They're not. That's probably one of the simplest way to put it, right? So hydration is really important, but it's not just drinking, but it's what you're drinking.
Mm-hmm. So what about so I know Gatorade just came out with Gatorade Zeros. So what are your thoughts on those, those zero, no sugar sports drinks?
Those are great to drink throughout the day if you want those extra electrolytes. During a game, they're okay, but you want those carbs because you're burning through those carbs. You want to replace them. But say you just liked it better and you find that it sits better, but you find that, eating a banana at halftime or some kind of carb-based snack at halftime works better for you, and you do that plus Gatorade Zero, then that's fine because you get both.
Yeah.
So that's perfectly fine. No.
Okay, cool. And then it's something you just said now is you said had a banana at halftime. And I was thinking about this earlier is when we played, when I was in college, we always had snacks at halftime. So we had, gummies, we had grapes, bananas, even some chocolate. So would you suggest something like that? Because I feel like it always helped me. I always would have, a pack of gummies or something at halftime. And I feel like it gave me a little extra boost. So is that something you would recommend for players to, bring some snacks for halftime?
Yeah. 100%. At Duke during halftime in the locker room, me and the athletic trainers, we would walk around with the Gatorade chews, some gummies, and the Gatorade fuel bars and, offer them and say, hey, sometimes players just didn't want them at all. If they're kind of indecisive, I said, take it. But yeah, no, 100%. It's something that a lot of youth athletes don't do. I know I didn't know about any of this stuff when I played in high school. So yeah, it makes a huge difference because you burn through so much in the first half, and you need to, if you replace that, then it's, you're starting the second half closer to 100%. Right. Obviously you're not completely 100%, but you're closer to it, and that makes a big difference.
Yeah, it's funny. As we're little kids, right? We get halftime oranges or whatever, and then as you get older, it's it goes out the window. And then in college again, it's like you look forward to those halftime snacks. Like it was like everybody wants the halftime snacks, and it's like everyone's throwing snacks around at halftime.
Yeah.
Like, so it's just kind of funny how that is. But I think that's huge. A thing that most players don't do at the youth level is they don't have those snacks at halftime that I think would really help. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm glad that that's something that you agree with is a good thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yep.
Cool. And then what about, I don't know if this is a myth or not, but I've heard this, and what I've heard is that you shouldn't drink like really, really cold water, that it's better to drink room temperature water for performance because it's harder to digest cold water. Is that total bull crap, or what or is that?
Yeah, I have heard about that slightly. I mean, I haven't read into it too much. For the most part, there's really not a lot of science to it. It's more what works best for you.
Okay.
And actually, cold water, if it's very hot outside, the cold water is better because it cools you down.
Yes.
And what do you like better? If some people like room temperature water, so if it's really cold, they're not going to drink a lot of it.
Okay.
So then in that case, the room temperature is better. Personally, I like cold water, so cold water is better for me because I'll drink more of it. It's basically what increases, what's going to make you drink more. And that's also one of the benefits of sports drinks is that since they taste better, you end up drinking more.
Right.
So that's another benefit of like Gatorade and stuff like that.
Okay.
But yeah, in terms of the temperature of the water, yeah, the digestion isn't really, it's not a huge factor.
So it's not like a scientific fact.
I mean, there might be a little bit of science to it, but if there's any effect, it'd be very minimal.
Okay.
And like insignificant, basically.
Okay. Because I mean, most kids, they come with their big ice waters, and I prefer cold water as well. So I remember hearing that a few years ago. And I was like, okay, I don't know if I believe this or not. So I figured it'd be a good question to ask you, and something that other people might be wondering as well.
Yeah, I mean, we put ice in all the water bottles at Duke. So, yeah, and there didn't seem to be any issue there. So
Awesome. So I know we're running out of time here. But if you could give our listener like one or two pieces of advice about nutrition and hydration, just for, I guess, general performance and wellness, what would you tell them?
So one of the biggest things is always planning ahead. So when you go to school, if you go to training, always have snacks in your backpack. Healthy snacks, right? So not, chips and junk food. So think, pretzels. Salted pretzels are great as an athlete. So no harm in having those in your bag. Fruit. And those quick snacks that you can, if you're hungry during training, or if you're in a rush going right to training, or in the middle of school day, you have that with you. And second is always having a water bottle on you, and not just on you, but in front of you. So if you're in school and you're allowed to, put your water bottle on your desk. Don't keep it in your backpack. Don't keep it on the floor. Keep it on your desk. And that causes you to drink more. That's what, with the college athletes, I say it all the time. If you're at the library studying, put that water bottle right out on the table in front of you. In class, always do that. If it's there, you'll drink it. If it's not there, you won't think to drink it.
Absolutely.
So it's those little things that help to remind you of what to do.
Yeah, no, I love that, because I know planning is a huge thing. And with the water, if you, like you just said, if it's not there, you don't think about it. If it is there, you're like, oh, I'm going to take a drink. So that's awesome. So I know we kind of talked about this earlier, but I know you have, a high school nutrition program, or a nutrition program for high school players, and you're thinking about coming out with one in the fall. So talk to us about like why nutrition specifically for high school players is so important, like during their high school season.
Really high school, college, and even middle school too, if they're ready to get into the nutrition. The reason it's so important during the season is, it's different than the off season. Off season, a lot of times you're looking for, weight management or just enhancing your workouts. During the season, it's all about weight maintenance. During the season, we tend to lose muscle mass because we're not lifting as much, running a lot, and we tend not to fuel. So with this program, what happens is, we have an initial visit, and then we talk throughout the month. So you can text and email me, and then we'll have like a quick check-in phone call every month to keep you on track. But the biggest part of it is, being able to text or email me throughout the season. So I'd be like, hey, like I have a game at this time, but I have class right now, or, I have this and that. What should I do to make sure I'm fueled for the game? Or, we have an hour bus trip for our game. Like what should I do? Okay. So little things like that. But yeah, the biggest thing about keeping track of your nutrition during the season is, like I said, maintaining that muscle mass, maintaining your energy, and most importantly, reducing injury risk. When I worked at Georgia, one of my supervisors said, your primary job during the season is to make sure your players don't get hurt. And broken bones, stuff like that, concussions, you can't do much about that. But stress fractures, pulled muscles, things like that, those are largely preventable through good nutrition. So my goal is to help you prevent that, because if you're trying to play in college and you miss a high school season or even a bulk of that season, that's really going to hurt your chances. So I want, make sure you're staying performed. I also saw something the other day and they did a test and they found that players' energy levels late in the season, like towards playoffs, are much lower than preseason and early season, because it's just a long season. They don't get much break. It's a lot of wear and tear, and playoffs are when you want to be your best. So that's another thing too. If you keep track of your nutrition all season, you're going to continue to recover, and you're not going to fall behind and get feel so sore and all that. So come playoffs, even if you may not have been the best team during the year, if your nutrition is better than the other teams, you have that little bit of extra edge, and maybe you win that state tournament. I'm not saying that's the only reason, but it does make a big difference, because if your energy is closer to 100%, and that's what this program does. It's not just your typical one-on-one counseling. All right, let's meet next week. It's
for sure. You
have an unlimited resource to text or email the sports dietitian about how to stay fueled during the season. I think that I wish I had something like that, because like I said, my nutrition as a player was really poor. I would eat cheeseburgers before games. I don't think I ate right after games. And I would feel so sore the next day, and I couldn't practice, or like my practices were so inefficient.
Right.
And if you can't practice hard, you're not going to get better. So
so
a lot of factors.
So anyone can, whether they're in Canada or in California or in Texas, they can work with you through this program, right?
Yeah, I mean, everything I do is online. Yeah. So whether it's this program or just general nutrition counseling, it's all online, flexible times and all that, because since it's online, I don't have like strict hours where I'm in the office. Because I mean, I'm in New Jersey, you're in California, and I could, meet with someone at 8 p.m. my time, or even 9 p.m. my time. I finish dinner, relax, and then I just pop on FaceTime and let's meet. So
that's awesome.
Pretty convenient. Yeah.
Awesome. So as we bring this podcast to a close, where can people, connect with you, find you on social media, and where can they learn more about your services?
Yeah. So you can email me. My email is Derek, so DEREK @fcnutritionnj.com. And then you can check me out on Instagram. It's FC_nutrition. For anyone that doesn't know what underscore is,
I'll put them in the show notes too.
And then the key next to 0, that's the underscore. And then Twitter is @FCNutritionNJ.
Okay.
So those are good places. I spew out a lot of facts there. Basically, I'll read research studies. I'm like, oh, this is cool, and I'll tweet it.
Yeah, I follow you on all platforms, and you put good info. So definitely check him out on Twitter, on Instagram. I'll post all the links in the show notes below, so you don't have to worry about spelling any of it. But I hope all you listeners got a lot of practical advice out of this episode, as I did. Make sure you follow him on those platforms to continue, to get his advice, and make sure you subscribe to the show and leave us an honest review if this episode brought value to you. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you on next week's episode.